Hello students, welcome to today's class. Our topic this week is on evolution, and we have the following learning objectives: to explain the term evolution at the end of the lesson, to also describe the various theories of evolution, which are the theory of use and disuse and the theory of natural selection. And we should also discuss the forces responsible for evolution. What are the forces responsible? We should be able to discuss these forces at the end of this lesson. Let's have a brief introduction of what evolution is, because scientists, biologists have always indulged into this study for many years. Scientists estimate that Earth is more than 5 billion years. And life has been in existence, life has been present on it for about 2 billion years. But it's still difficult for us to understand how long of time, and to imagine, for us to comprehend such long period of time, and to imagine the many changes that must have occurred through the ages. The question has always been, has the Earth always looked much as we see it today? How old is the Earth? Have the same kind of organism populated its land and seas? Sometimes you see scientists, they will always prove to you that the face of the Earth is changing constantly, which is not debatable, because through the ages we can observe clearly that mountains have always pushed up only to be leveled gradually, either by winds or by rain. You can see clearly that climatic conditions have always changed many times. There have been warm period and cold period, of heavy rain and period of drought in all regions of the earth. There are several millions of species of animals, plants and microorganisms living together. Biologists have always wanted to know, how does this tremendous diversity of life come to exist on this planet? Questions of Earth origin and life origin have been in the minds of humans since prehistoric periods. So when accounts of creation was passed orally from generation to generation, both religious and philosophers, they always make writings to help provide answers to question of origin. Why are we here? These are some of these questions that will always come up. How did we come here? How do we deal with some of our mortality? How do we do about our mortality? Other questions that there are several questions that will always come out as a result of man seeking the knowledge of its existence and the origin of life. The attempt to answer this question brings about organic evolution. And as a result of the research made by these scientists, they have to raise a definition where we say that evolution is the gradual changes or characteristics of a species over a time. That is the sum total of adaptive changes that have taken place over a long period of time. That's why you will see different definitions, because the word evolution means an unfolding and unrolling, a gradual change from one condition to another, or a slow change by which organisms have acquired their distinguishing characteristics. So all these characteristics that have been acquired over a long period of time is what we call evolution. The theory of evolution states that all species of living things which exist today and many more which are no longer in existence, which are now extinct, have evolved from simple life forms which first developed more than 3 billion years ago. So in a brief way, we say that the theory of evolution said that all extant and extinct species evolved from simple life form which developed more than 3 billion years ago. Let's look at some of these theories of evolution, because many scientists, even philosophers, have always indulged in the search of origin of life. Someone like Aristotle, within the year of 384 to 322 BC, he made his research and brought about a theory that he tried to bring out the origin, his own analysis about the origin of living organisms. The father of microbiology, Louis Pasteur, who disproved the theory of spontaneous generation, is also one of them. But we'll be concentrating on the two based on our learning objective. The Lamarck theory of evolution and that of Charles Darwin. In Lamarck's theory of evolution, he made the following deductions: that environmental influences are the main cause of evolutionary changes. Said again that organs that are used extensively enlarge and become more efficient. Unused organs degenerate and become useless. New species originate through the inheritable of acquired characters developed in life by the use and disuse of organs. Now let me explain this using this diagram. In this diagram, I have this one. We have an organism here who is not using its organ effectively, while we have another one here which is using an organ continuously. Remember that the theory says that the environment makes an organism to have some needs. When environment tends to make an organism to have some need, the organism, in order for it to satisfy those needs, the organism will use an organ. This organism, the environment it found itself, the giraffe that Lamarck used, for giraffe to find or survive in this environment to satisfy this need, because the plant is above, the height of the plant is up, it has to stretch its neck and leg at once so that it can be able to feed from here. The more it strengthens its neck, an organ that is much used will keep on developing. When the leg and neck are stretched, they will keep on developing. That organ that is used often will develop. And those characters, those developed neck and those developed leg, are passed to their offspring. They are inherited by their offspring. Why here? You will see that organism, because these organs are not used, what will happen? That they will degenerate. Organ that is not much used will degenerate. This organ, they are not used often. The legs, the neck, they are not used often. You see that the organism will not develop this structure. Instead, you see degeneration of those organs. That's why I gave you an example of one of his analysis when he used an Asian snakes that they have limbs. As a result of them hiding under grasses in order to run away from predators, because those limbs they weren't using them again, that they have to degenerate. That was the assumption or the theory of use and disuse of body parts or body organs by Lamarck. The theory of Charles Darwin theory of evolution, which we said is the theory of natural selection. In his theory, he said that all organisms produce more offspring that can actually survive, the population size remain constant over an extended period. Individuals in a population usually struggle among themselves in order to survive. Said again that offspring show variations, some which are inheritable. Some of the variation enable the individual organism to survive when there is a struggle for existence in the population. And finally, organisms having the most advantageous variation have greater capacity to survive and produce offspring which may inherit the variation. Let me explain using this. In his theory, he said that offspring tend to produce more offspring. Living organisms tend to produce more offspring that can actually survive. When species produce more offspring that can actually survive to maturity, what will happen? When overproduction occurs, competition will come in. When competition comes in, it will be that the survival of the fittest will be introduced in a situation in which that organism which develops a structure that will enable it to survive will be the one that will live. So if overproduction occurs because each organism seeks food, yes, each organism seeks water, and all, even air, want even space. So, but only few of them can obtain these needs in struggling to survive because there is overproduction. So this struggle for existence at times will bring about members of the same species struggling because they compete for the same necessities. So if a small number of organisms is introduced into an area, the population will increase rapidly until environmental resistance sets in, and the population will be stable at this moment. Now, when the population is stable, it's being achieved. The only thing that will make the population to be stable is being achieved by the death rate of some of the organisms who are unable to survive. So the mortality occurring as a result of maybe predation, disease, lack of essential commodities such as food, shelter, will bring about balancing. Because here you see that some organisms who have developed variation, either this variation might be a result of mutation. If they develop variation, the variation will help them to survive. They will have some structures that will enable them to survive. Those that we are unable to develop these traits, we die. That's why we said that it's the theory of natural selection, that nature will select those that will survive. Those that are able to develop traits, to develop new characteristics that will enable them to survive. Because the situation is that the fittest will survive while the weak ones will die. So when we have the fittest living, what will happen? That the fittest will interbreed within themselves to produce new species. And population will continue. The trait of those individuals that survive and reproduce will become more common in the population, while the other ones will be in low population. They will be in lesser population because the fittest have dominated the whole environment. That is the Darwin's theory of natural selection, survival of the fittest. A theory in which nature selects organisms or individual organisms that will survive longer and produce more than others do, because they have some traits that those other individuals doesn't have. This trait might be when it comes to plants. Some plants have resistance to diseases. Some plants, they can be able to blend their color in order to run away from, or some animals can be able to blend their color in order to run away from predators. So an animal that doesn't have that characteristic, what will happen? The animal will be eaten by its predator, which means that the population of that animal will reduce. A plant that has a resistant variety to disease, what will happen? That its population will keep on increasing. Why those that doesn't have that attribute, what will happen? That their population will reduce, because an organism, a weaker organism, its population is always down, while the strong one, the organism that is fit, its population will increase, it will reproduce and become common in the population. Having understood this, let's look at the differences between the Lamarck's theory and Charles Darwin theory. In Charles Darwin theory, we have here as Lamarck's theory, while we have here as Charles Darwin theory. In Darwin theory, he said that variation appears by themselves in a population. The variation occurs by organisms in the population. Why here? In Lamarck, he said that variation always appears as a result of an organism trying to satisfy needs which exist in the environment. Now, another one, you say that the environment selects. Here, natural selection. The environment selects the organism that will survive. The select organism that will survive. Organisms that have favorable adaptive measures will survive. Why those that don't have, they will die. Why here? You see that the environment causes variation to be maintained. The variation will always arise from members, because they are trying to satisfy the needs of the environment. Another one, you see that hereditary variations here are transmitted to offspring. Why here? He said that characteristics acquired through the use of transmitted character through the use and disuse are transmitted to the offspring. But here we are looking at inherited characters being transmitted to offspring. But here we are looking at characteristics as a result of use and disuse transmitted to offspring. So here also we have that species that are fittest, the fittest species are the ones that will survive. While here we see that offspring inherit characteristics acquired by their parents through striving to survive or satisfy their environment. These differences, I want you to you should be able to capture 2 to 3 differences between the Darwin theory of evolution and the Lamarck's theory of evolution. Capture at least 3 differences. It's very, very necessary because you are in exam class. Modern theories of evolution. The modern theories, or we say is the post-Darwinian theory of the post-Darwinism or neo-Darwinism, the theories that came after that of Charles Darwin. We have the following theory that certain variations are caused by the environment and they are not inheritable. Yeah, some of them are caused by the environment and they are not inheritable. The only inheritable variations are those caused by changes in the structure of DNA in the chromosome, the ones that happen as a result of gene mutation. Mutations are the ingredients for organic evolution by natural selection. Mutations are the ingredients for organic evolution by natural selection. We have another one that the functional unit of evolution is the population. The functional unit where evolution occurs is in a population. Isolation is an important factor in evolution. When organisms are isolated, 2 populations are isolated, this and a barrier is being created, that possibly there will be an interbreeding which will result to production of new individuals. It's a very important factor in evolution. Let's look at forces responsible for evolution. Forces responsible for evolution. The first one, we have mutation. The sudden change that happens in the gene. A sudden or abnormal change that occurs in the gene. Mutation normally occurs when there are random changes in the position of the DNA. when the DNA is being altered, the genetic informations in the DNA, if they are being altered, either they are being switched, or they are being recombination, or they are being transferred. So anything that happens to the gene that brings about altering the nature of that gene will result to mutation. At times, mutation can occur naturally, but the chance of mutation occurring is increased by some factors. Here we have radiation. X-rays and radiation from radioactive substances always increase the rate of evolution. The greater the dose of radiation you see, the greater the chance of the person having mutation. Another one, we have some certain chemicals. Drugs and some chemicals also facilitate mutation to occur. We have two types of mutation. We have somatic mutation and we have germline mutation. In somatic mutation, it's a mutation that occurs in the body cells, while in germline mutation is the one that occurs during gamete or germ cell formation. So that's why you say germline mutations are the ones that are inheritable, while somatic mutations are the ones that are caused in the body cells. Now, these mutations that occurs in the gene, at times they can be as a result of chromosomal changes. When there is any effect, when the effect of chromosomal mutation occurs, you can see noticeably that the gene of that person will be altered because the chromosome structure changes. It can even include something like, when we have something like haploidy, we have something like polyploidy. These things, even when we talk about non-disjunction, crossing over, the exchange of different parts of the segment of a chromosomal pair. These are different types of germline mutation. The one that occurs in the chromosome. So when you talk about haploidy, you talk about loss of one entire set of a chromosome. When one set of a chromosome is lost. So polyploidy is always a gain. When there is a gain in the number of chromosomes, if instead of the chromosome to be 23 pairs, it might be 24 or 25 pairs. Instead of it to be diploid, it might be triploid or tetraploid. When you talk about non-disjunction, you see there is a gain or loss of part of a set of chromosomes. So these are different things that can happen to the chromosome, and it will result to mutation. The second one is gene flow, the transfer of genetic variation from one population to another. How does this occur? Gene flow. When migration occurs, to the extent that individuals of a population occupy new area and interbreed with other populations of the same species, you see that new gene combinations are formed. Let's just assume that several members of an animal population migrate to a new area. They take with them certain combination of gene characteristics of the population which they have been a part. So before. Now, if you look at it, the arrival in the new area introduces genetic characteristics that have been absent in this present population that they came into. Interbreeding makes their offspring to receive different genes from the new population. This will lead to their genetic makeup being altered. When this happens, what will happen? What will be the result? That one result of migration is the production of variation through genetic combination. So when there is a transfer of genetic variation from one population to another, that is what we said is the gene flow. So when a member of a population interbreeds, genes are recombined in various ways, and it spread rapidly in that population. When we say that the total gene content of a species is what we call the gene pool. The total gene content of a species is what we call the gene pool. Thank you.